Florida State had their second scrimmage of the preseason this past weekend, and we are fired up to tell you about the person that has, by all accounts, come alive and could be the answer to one of our biggest problems from last season.
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Folks, we have a wonderful show for you today. Myself, Drake, Dave, here at Locked On Seminoles. If you are not subscribed, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube, follow us on the various social medias, and do the following and all that stuff for the podcast. Before we dive in today to talk about, I think we're going to start with receivers, right? Last year, David Hale, before the season, had us ranked 14th in the ACC for receivers. We saw that play out on the field. And we have now seen not just words typed on a screen, but video of Johnny Wilson possibly being that dude. We have gotten to see video footage of Deuce Spann running. I spoke to a scout that was at Florida State before they went to Jacksonville. I don't know why he wasted his time talking to me, but really nice dude. He said that that's one of the fastest people he's seen. Pretty incredible stuff for an NFL scout to say that. And yeah, it's just it's coming along. But before we get into that, folks, big announcement. Today will be my last day with all of you here on this platform at Locked On Seminoles. I don't know, guys. I've already told you guys everything and talked to y'all. It's been a hell of a run. I appreciate y'all's support. The love and support from all of you is wonderful. Even the not so supportive support. The comments, the back and forth, some of the trolling, some of the stuff we get to respond to. It's been great, and I hope that us doing this program has brought y'all a little bit of joy throughout your day, each and every day. Yeah, I guess, guys, I don't know. I don't really have like a whole written out thing of closing thoughts. I guess all I would say is, I got to spend 16 months doing a daily podcast with two of my best friends.
You made me cry, dude. Please don't do that.
Yeah. And, it's pretty nuts. Like, if it's your first time watching this, you're kind of a weird episode to come in for. But, we've got two lawyers and a business consultant, and I don't know how the hell we managed to publish these things every day. I know you guys are going to keep doing it, but we always found time for it. We spent a lot of time together in the process, some late nights, some early mornings. And if y'all ever have the chance, they say don't go into business with your friends. I think that's stupid. I've had more fun doing this than anything I've ever done. So, yeah, guys, I'm really grateful that when y'all were going to start Noles Anonymous a couple years ago, you let me tag along. We've come a really, really long way from Xbox headsets at the kitchen table. It's just been a wild ride. So everyone, I will still be around. I've got a new project in the works that I won't plug here. It won't be anything like this. It's nothing. It won't be daily. It won't be long form. What would we even call this, guys? Analysis, commentary, whatever we do. But I'll be around. I love Twitter. I love the spaces. I love getting to talk about Florida State football, so I won't completely go away. But Locked On Seminoles will now be in the very capable hands of Drake and Dave. And gentlemen, I couldn't be more excited. And I will be making Locked On my first listen every day.
You bastard. You're gonna make me cry on YouTube and just basically be on here, but you're not gonna miss us, man. Noles Nom is still gonna be the thing. It's still gonna be the brand. We're still gonna be growing it, and like you said, like we have built something here that I think all three of us are extremely proud of. And quite honestly, I could never ask for a better thing to do. Actually, probably with two of my best friends, and it's gonna suck not to have you here, but obviously you'll be a very recurring and very welcome guest actually on the show each and every single day.
And I have decided if I ever write a book, a memoir, if I ever do anything important enough to write a memoir, it will be titled "It All Started with a Podcast." Because, again, we just had to do any of this. That's a pretty
good title too, actually.
I like that.
Yeah, well, because it was like my first, instance of like, just we just had to figure it all out. I was doing business school at the time. Sorry, my headphones are coming unplugged. I had business school going on. I had work, and then I was running a startup on the side of that, and like doing this, and we just were, we were Googling how does one publish a podcast. I don't know. I guess we could figure that out, We're learning how to. I'd done some editing in high school and TV production. We figured that out, and
still got
exactly. I mean, like mine's sitting right here. But anyway, so folks, if you ever have the chance or there's anything you want to do, just do it because you never know. I mean, we just stuck with this. We got through the Noles Anonymous days, which were fun, and Locked On approached us, and we made the move. And I admittedly never thought I'd make any money doing this. Not that we're rich, but the fact that someone pays us to do a hobby is a lot more than I could say for my golf game. So
yeah, right.
Yeah, it's been cool. But without further ado, I do want to talk about the team because that is why we're here. That's why we do what we do. But let's talk about Johnny Wilson. Let's talk about the receivers. Last year, here's the reality. You didn't have a room full of absolutely trash receivers. I'm not going to say that because I don't think it's true. But you didn't have anyone really step up. You had Malik McClain, who we saw flashes of, but we also saw, him just not have the development that you'd like to see from a number one receiver.
And being a freshman.
Yeah, he was a freshman. We saw Andrew Parchment come in, and it's got to stop coming unplugged. Saw Andrew Parchment come in, and look, he just wasn't.
He had moments.
He's probably what we knew he was gonna be if we were really honest with ourselves. But the thing with Parchment was, he had potential. We'd seen it his freshman year when he had a good quarterback at Kansas. He didn't really ever live up to that. You got guys like Portier and those guys, but you just didn't have anyone where you're like, this guy needs to be accounted for. What I mean, guys, is I imagine if we were playing Florida State last year and we were the offensive staff for the other team, there was really no receiver that it was like, hey, number one corner, this is your guy. When we get down, when we signal this play in, that means you're on him. I don't care what he does. That just, there wasn't any of those. And now we might have two of them in Johnny Wilson and Deuce Spann for different reasons. One is really, really tall.
Maybe three.
One's really fast.
I think three, to be honest.
And we're not even talking about Winston Wright, who once he gets back from his
I was
injury,
going to talk about Mycah Pittman in the slot.
So maybe four, and all four of them transfers. And Max, like what you were saying, not only did opposing defenses not really have to worry about any receivers in particular, like no matter what our set was on the field, I feel like opposing teams were probably like, it'll probably be fine. Like nothing really scares us out here. But even more frustrating than that, like as fans, did you trust that on third and anything? And obviously 4th and 14 worked out. But aside from that, on third and anything, did you trust we had a guy that was going to be able to get that first down? Because I absolutely didn't, and I expected Jordan Travis to have to run for it.
Yeah, exactly. It was like, no, the answer is no. In fact, 4th and 14, I remember being in the stadium and it's 4th and 14. I'm like, who the hell is he going to throw to? You're just kind of like, I don't know who's I was just, that play, I was expecting a drop or, just off the hands, something ridiculous. Right. And, hey, now you got some guys that may be able to do things. I mean, look, you can't just go out there against this team now and say, hey, wherever the defense is lined up, just play your assignment. Now, if you see something where you see certain guys in certain places, the defense is going to have to move around to compensate for that because they'll have certain defenders assigned to certain receivers, which is not something they had to do last year. I mean, dude, most of our games, any of their cornerbacks could cover any of our receivers. Yep. There really wasn't like since, we have a taller cornerback and he's our best man guy, we need to put him on Johnny Wilson, which is going to happen this year, right? They're going to have to put their speed guy who has good hips on Deuce Spann because of his speed. They're going to have someone who's not a linebacker on Mycah Pittman because he's going to be physical enough to deal with linebacker coverage and fast enough to get away from it. So Winston Wright, I've been delicate about this, but it's my last day, so screw it. I think if we expect much from him this year, we're going to be disappointed. I think we have to realize him getting back on the field is going to be a really big deal in and of itself, but he's also going to have not played football for 6 months. So it's like, I just don't want us to set ourselves up for disappointment in the Winston Wright department, but that's not a knock on Winston Wright. That's like a full leg break is a pretty bad injury. And then you add literally March to September of not playing football.
And you got to knock the rust off, and you don't want him having his first, experience back in the game, early season. So primarily, I wouldn't expect Winston Wright to be back until maybe the end of October, early November for those last maybe 4 to 5 games, quite honestly, even if at all.
The way I'm looking at it, though, is yes, Johnny Wilson has continued to kill it this last week. That was a little unexpected. I think we all thought that with his size, he was going to take time to develop into, the route running and just making sure he has sure hands. And it seems like everything's coming together. But even if Winston Wright does take some time, we brought in 4 guys, all of whom we've talked about in good ways and all of whom have showed us something. Winston Wright in his career thus far, but the rest of them in fall practice and scrimmage. And the odds are one or more of them is going to pop. So if we have one guy from this new group that opposing defenses have to worry about, that's an infinity % improvement from last year.
And not only that, you have the guys from last year that Max and I kind of said, like, Keyshawn Helton is your perfect wide receiver 3. Now we have 4 players coming in, well, 3, minus Winston Wright. Actually, you don't need Keyshawn Helton or an Ontario Wilson, who also has been tearing up fall camp, to be your number 1 option, which is a lot easier on them. And quite honestly, actually may make them have their best season since they've been here at FSU.
Yeah, let's not forget about Malik McClain. I mean, been he's been her like unsung hero of fall camp. Apparently, he's having a really good camp.
Yep.
But I think we're just nervous because we have to see it. Like we saw the spring game where Johnny Wilson just couldn't really catch the ball, and then we all saw that highlight that went around Twitter. If you haven't seen it, check it out. Of him making just an absolutely beautiful catch in the back of the end zone.
Good coverage, too, also.
In good coverage. But you see, I mean, dude, there's a difference between 6'1" and 6'7". When he extends that arm, which, okay, I mean, you got to be a little careful how you do that. But it was good. It was good arm extension on the DB, and he brought the arm back as he was turning away. So it kind of, you could slip one of those past the referee every now and then. But that's a lot of space that gets created when a guy that tall is able to extend his arm. So
yeah, Kelvin Benjamin was super effective doing an awful lot of that. If we have another one of those, we're in good shape.
Ooh,
yeah, not that he'll be Kelvin Benjamin this year, but it's
elite live
to watch.
It's elite live season.
Well,
he is going to be KB1, okay? We got Johnny Wilson 14, JW 14 now.
That's a hard one. Anyway, all right, so I want to talk a little bit about the quarterback situation from practice or the scrimmage. But first, I got to remind y'all about our title sponsor, the folks that make this all possible, LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs is your number 1 source for job hunting, for job placing, and for recruiting in general. It's easier to navigate than any of those other job sites. You have your profile right there. When you look at job postings, you can see, hey, do you have mutual connections that work at this job? Because it's easier to get a job when you reach out to someone. You're like, hey, can I talk to you about the company? Is this, what's this like? Is this something I want to do? Could you put in a good word for me? All that good stuff. So it's a wonderful interface. I love LinkedIn Jobs. It's how I got my job. I know Drake and Dave have both used it, both as job seekers, and I know that Dave, you've used it as a job poster. So again, LinkedIn Jobs is your number 1 place to go if you need a job or if you need to hire someone. So check it out. LinkedIn, big believer. Y'all know what to do. All right, guys, I want to talk quarterbacks because, it's Florida State University. What else do we like to talk about? Jordan Travis played 1 series in the scrimmage, we're hearing. What do y'all make of that? Good, bad, indifferent?
I don't care. I don't want to get hurt.
Yeah,
to be completely honest.
Minimize the risk. I think we know what he can do. We've heard that he's improved from last year. Honestly, if he is the same as last year, I think we can reach a lot of the goals we've expected. Any improvement from that, I think, is what we're going to need to get into that 8+ game or win territory. But the risk reward is just not there. Like, I think we have a good enough idea of what he can do. We need him to have the rapport with the new receivers, but from all accounts, that's been established. So just putting him out there when we saw what happened to
Chubba Purdy with the collarbone,
right? Just no point.
I don't think there's really much point to him maybe playing 1, maybe 2. To me, this is a glorified preseason game, and we saw the Miami Dolphins didn't start, I think, a single one of their stars at their tight end. So, And like Dave was just saying, he's got the chemistry with Johnny Wilson, and we have Mycah Pittman comparing him to Justin Herbert the other day, which that's a lofty task, but elite license season is in full effect. But to me, with JT having only 1, maybe 2 series, I'm not reading anything into that. Also, have him rest up and be ready for Duquesne for maybe his first quarter, and then actually be prepared for LSU the following week.
Well, and to add to that, we need to know what we have in these backups. Like, if AJ Duffy is somehow ready for the big stage as a true freshman, we need to know that. If Rodemaker hasn't improved, we need to know that, because again, we've talked about this a million times. I hope Jordan Travis doesn't miss a snap this year, but the overwhelming odds are that he's going to miss a snap and probably a series and maybe a game because of the way he plays. You're going to see these backup quarterbacks in moments that probably matter. So we need to know what we have in them just as much, if not more, than we need to know what we have in Jordan Travis, which is a pretty known quantity at this point.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think for me, it in a way, I do read a lot into it. And what I read into it, though, is that Mike Norvell finally seems to trust Jordan Travis because he's not making him sing for his supper every week.
Yeah,
I think
agreed.
that Mike has done a lot of probably conscious and subconscious things where it's like he's kind of trying to make Jordan prove that he can be the quarterback this team needs. And to me, this says like, well, maybe he's finally, realized, no, this is my QB1. He doesn't need to be out there proving it to me all the time. And I'm hoping, maybe I'm overanalyzing, I'm hoping this means that he really has been developing as a passer the way that we've heard he's developing as a passer, because Mike Norvell's like, hey, he doesn't need 40 reps of live throws. He's doing just fine the way I've seen him in practice. And that's really, really encouraging. I don't really want to think about the possibility of like, what if he goes down? I mean, everyone, if his helmet gets knocked off, I think we're probably okay with where we're at with Tate Rodemaker and AJ Duffy. But if he has to miss substantial time, I don't know how your team looks. But what I will say, guys, is you look at Jordan Travis's injuries. I may have said this before. I think I have. Sorry, but they've frequently been injuries of attrition. Like he's not. I'm not besmirching one of the greats, but like Dalvin always had very specific injuries, right? And like that was the concern going in the NFL. It's like, hey, it was a shoulder, then it was a hamstring, yeah. But Jordan, it's more like, hey, he's just super banged up, and it's kind of his hand, and it's kind of his shoulder, and it's kind of his legs, and that is not good. But if that's the type of injury history he has, well, that's not as bad when you look at how front-loaded the schedule is. Like most likely scenarios, he starts missing games at like 6, 7, 8, 9. And that's where you start to get to the games that are much more winnable without Jordan.
It's like seeing those pitchers basically in the Major League Baseball where they have a very extremely hot and good start in the first half. And then when the second half comes around, the innings limit, becomes an issue when they start getting tired because they're getting worn down, being asked to do every single little thing. So I can agree with that with Jordan. And then what's up, Dave?
Luis Severino.
Yeah, Luis Severino being a prime example. Pablo Lopez with the Marlins too as well. But to me, I think one of the big things with the quarterback spot is hearing that AJ Duffy has looked a lot more confident over the past week and a half. And that's something that we were fully expecting Tate Rodemaker to be QB2 heading into the season. I think that's something that he's been here for 3 years. I don't think you really do yourself any favors if you're Mike Norvell supplanting him with a true freshman, because that's sort of the message that, hey, you're never going to play here. Yep. But with AJ Duffy, it's a really good sign to see that basically he struggled the first few weeks of camp and spring, which is normal because he hadn't played football since November because of a finger injury. And then now you're hearing that he has sort of he starts off slow in scrimmage, but then confidently throws a bomb and Deuce Spann and also plays a lot with the 1s and 2s yesterday and actually does very well. So to me, I'm actually very excited to see what we have with AJ Duffy heading into 2023, but also just in case Jordan maybe does have to miss a series, or if Tate Rodemaker does showcase basically his how he has not actually been improved since last year.
Yeah, and I think the last thing I can say on this is, Max, you mentioned the schedule is front loaded. That's really important because can you imagine a scenario where Jordan Travis played meaningful snaps against Duquesne like into the third quarter and then ended up getting injured and had to miss the LSU game, in a game, by the way, that with Jaden Daniels likely starting, I think is eminently winnable. That could derail the season before it starts. And then after that, you're talking Louisville. Like if Jordan Travis is missing those 2 games, those are probably 2 losses. And suddenly you're starting the season 1 and 2. And we know how that story goes. So keeping him healthy to be able to be available to play in those games is just as important as him practicing in a meaningless scrimmage.
You got no faith in Jan Daniels, doing you?
No,
giving the man no respect.
None.
Yeah, oh, that's why. Okay, sorry. I was getting a really weird number. I was trying to figure out what your chance I was trying to calculate how front load the schedule is. And I was getting a super strange number that was showing it being actually backloaded, but I realized what the problem is. Folks, if you do power rankings or anything, you have to adjust for teams like Louisiana Lafayette that if you haven't looked at them yet and made your adjustments on them, have like a great initial power ranking, and then you factor in the fact they lost their coach and all their good players from last year. Point is, we have on my numbers like a 1.6% chance of going undefeated for our first 6 games and a 2.7% chance of going undefeated in the last 2. Or the last 6, I'm sorry, not the last 2, the last 6. So it's about half as difficult by the way I've got the numbers laid out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with all of that, especially the political element. Folks, like it or not, we're in the era of a transfer portal. And I don't think you gain a single ounce of benefit by naming A.J. Duffy as your second string quarterback. I think if Jordan is out and we know he's out all week, you probably start prepping A.J.
Yeah.
But I think that you probably roll with Tate because he knows more of the playbook. He knows the system. But I'm not so sure that if Jordan goes down during a game, it's going to be Tate that rolls out there, if that makes sense. Because then you can be like, hey, we're going to limit it to a few play calls, whatever. Tate or AJ, get out there and make something happen. But yeah, I don't know. I'm with you. That's kind of all I have on the quarterback situation. I will say one last thing about the Duquesne thing that you mentioned, Dave. I have no desire to see him take meaningful snaps in this, and here's why. This is week 0. It's game 0. LSU is game 1. Like, in a normal season, he wouldn't get any snaps before LSU anyway. So the way I look at it is every snap against Duquesne is just gravy. So yeah, give him a series or two, but it's also Duquesne. Is he really gaining much more from playing them than playing our first string defense all the time? I don't really think so. So keep stuff off tape. Don't make him risk injury. Get him out. I mean, if we learned anything from the end of the Jimbo era, it's that you don't play your freaking starters in the second half against Charleston Southern and let them tear their meniscus and miss the game the next week against the Heisman Trophy winner and get absolutely blown out. Yep. And I don't really give a crap about his weird defense. Well, if you look at the snap counts, it's like, no, the snap counts are irrelevant. It was Charleston Southern. Derwin shouldn't have been in the game. But
I missed Derwin.
Rant over. Folks, if you want to have a good rant like that, though, you're going to need some energy. And there's no better way to get energy than through Built Bar. Built Bar is delicious, it's nutritious, and it is all the fuel you need to make your rants long, illustrious probably isn't the right word, but make them long, make them energetic, and all that good stuff. So Built Bars for exercise, Built Bars for ranting, and Built Bars when you just need a tasty snack because you know if you don't get something sweet inside your body, you're going to order ice cream off GoPuff. And let's be honest, Ben & Jerry's pints are a single serving if you believe in yourself.
It's so true.
So get Built Bars, 15 grams of protein, 4 grams of net carbs. They're your friend. That full pint of ice cream
is not
so much.
You'll regret it.
Go to Built.com, use promo code LOCK15. Built.com, promo code LOCKED15.
Cookie junk for the win.
Yeah, last thing I want to talk about today, guys, is the special teams. So
because you're so special to us, Max.
I know. I appreciate that. You're special to me too. It was interesting. Last week I was doing some stuff and I ran a bunch of regressions looking at can I figure out what is the most statistically significant statistic on a team's point differential. And what I came up with was starting field position, something Florida State was nearly dead last in the country in last year. So how do we stop having bad starting field position? Well, it starts in the kicking and the punt return game. So we've heard that Trey, Benson, Deuce, Spann, and who was our other one?
Sam McCall.
Did we say
Sam McCall?
Sam McCall have been at kick return, have been at punt return. One thing I don't love, by the way, is that when we practice in the IPF, we really can't practice catching punts because a lot of times they hit the ceiling.
Yep.
So I don't know why they don't go outside every day and do a session on that because I'm sorry, it can't be that hard. I know former players, this is happening, this is going. No, it's catching a punt. It's a free throw. Just get under. It's not like the old days where once you kind of established yourself, they had to give you that halo. And then if you tried to go past them, they could just kind of, no, they have to not touch you.
I mean,
how can you not catch the damn punt?
You still kind of have to be you kind of want to sometimes actually take the punt down, right? And you have several people coming towards you to basically maul you. That's somewhat scary.
Well, Drake, to Max.
But call a fair catch every time and catch it every time is better than letting it hit the ground. The ball should never touch the ground. There's no excuse.
Let me ask you both a question. Right off the top of your head, name me the last Florida State player you were positive was going to catch that punt.
I used to not even know who it was because I'd go get another beer or something when they were punting.
Dude, it was Greg Reed. I was positive.
No, it wasn't Greg Reed. I was confident until 2016 we would at least catch the ball. No, I was positive. I was positive. It wasn't until about 2 years ago. Dude, this non-punt catching phenomenon is like a very, very recent thing. I mean, I'm not even really blaming Norvell, I guess. I mean, it's just like, I don't know when it started. It started like 2 years ago. All of a sudden, everything started going over our heads and we started giving up field position. It was like they got okay with not catching the punt. And like, sometimes I wonder if it's just, if kind of what you're saying, they're trying to do too much and they're getting so locked in on, okay, I want to return this one. And then the minute they can't, they're like, oh, wait, there's too many guys coming. They kind of forget that the second option is a fair catch.
And they forget where they are. So sometimes you do a fair catch like in the bad spot, or you'd be like, oh, you know what, I'm just going to let bounce. And it bounces all the way down from the one when you're already at the 25. So it's like, it's a lot more to it. But then also it's like you're saying, sometimes like, hey, just get under it, know where you are, know you're surrounded. And if you think you can take it, just catch it and take it. But if you don't, it isn't even the slightest thing of doubt. Just fair catch that thing.
It makes me wonder, like, is it the coaching staff feeling like we just don't have anybody we can trust? Is it the coaching staff, I don't know, just consistently making the don't catch it call? Or is it the players consistently just saying, screw it, I'm not going to catch it? Because any of those is a problem.
It was lining up a lot last year. If you look, a lot of guys were running backwards which to me, I don't understand. I look at the freaking ESPN stat sheet. It's not hard. How far does that punter punt it? What's their average? What's the longest they've ever punted it? Whatever that second number is, stand that many of the little white tick marks away from the line of scrimmage. And if the ball doesn't quite go the longest he's ever punted it, run forward. But how the does a punt go over your head? Are you stupid or are you deaf? Like, just catch the freaking ball. It's not hard. So that part, I think, was allowed on the coaching staff, though, because I mean, I can't tell you how many times Wilson's going, and then he's trying to get back in front of it, and then, okay, maybe
that's
bobbles
coaching.
it.
I was like, Dave, you ever played outfield or anything? Like, it's a lot easier to run in to catch the ball than to run backwards and backpedaling and everything.
And track the position of the
100%.
ball in the air.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're being told to do this. That's obvious. And again, that could be because the coaching staff doesn't trust the personnel, but I refuse to believe that even last year or any year before that, we didn't have one out of those 85 guys that we could be sure would catch a punt.
No, we did. We had DJ Matthews. DJ Matthews actually was a decent, solid punt and kick returner.
That's right. I forgot about him.
And then actually when he left, that's kind of was the issue where it's like, oh, we kind of basically are trying to new people out. That's why Mycah Pittman, if you watch, he's doing punt return duties.
Yeah.
That's going to be a huge, difference maker.
Yeah.
Winston Wright, before the injury, was going to be a primary kick returner. But that's why now you see at Trey Benson, you're starting running back, which I'm not a huge fan of, but if he can do it, he can do it. You got Sam McCall as well out there. Like, I'm fine with this so long as they stay healthy, but as long as they're able to catch the ball and not do the backpedaling that Max is saying, I'm fine with whoever's got
Drake,
to
just line up in the right spot.
Just to clarify what you were saying, you said not a big fan. You meant not a big fan of having him on kick returns, right? Because, and Max, we were talking about this off air before the show, but I worry about putting a guy like Trey Benson out there on kick return. Like, obviously, it's super important that we improve our field position, but I don't know what the risk reward is of that, because if he goes down, I don't know that the running back room is going to be nearly as competent. It probably won't be based on everything we've heard about.
And
Benson.
then with that, and the main reason why is like, I don't know how much, I guess, of a improvement you get from having Trey Benson returning kicks as to opposed to the second option. And I don't know Sam McCall. So I don't know how big of actually, how much better he's at doing it, and if it's even worth the risk of him getting injured. I've seen a lot more injuries on special teams, honestly, than anything else.
Yeah, and so I will say kicks, I have less of a strong opinion because I don't kick return. A lot of times you're better off just taking the fair catch or downing it in the end zone.
Honestly,
now they have the new rule, go to the 20, 25. Punts, whoever is the most likely to catch that punt needs to be back there. I don't care about the injury risk, and here's why. That to me is far more significant to our performance in the long run than Trey Benson playing running back, because we have Trayshawn Ward back there. Like, you look at how many times, I mean, you can lose one-score games very easily by having your field position on one drive be at the 2 because you let it roll back there instead of at the 17, right? Like, especially when you look at a lot of close games, it's that field flipping chess match. It's just, you're really not always trying to, you're not going to score against this team every time. So really all you're trying to do is, hey, they've got the ball on their own 40. Can we make it so they're going to get it to us, and next time we give it to them, they're back on their own 20? Can we start to inch our way towards their end zone and set ourselves up? That's an extremely important part of the game. And I don't know, I mean, maybe there's some data on this, but I don't think a punt return is any more dangerous kick return. I agree with you, but I don't think a punt return is much more dangerous than another run. And, that's almost like saying, would you advocate for handing him the ball 4 less times randomly throughout the game just so he didn't get hurt as much? No. We need our workhorses to work for us, and injuries are part of the game. We just kind of have to accept that. If he's out there playing gunner and tackling people, fully agree. Like that'd be like, okay, dude, save your starters. But we need the best punt catcher and ideally returner out there doing that this year.
Let me ask you both this. Would you rather have a punt returner that would drop 1 punt a game, but would return one to the house every other game, or a guy that will never return a single punt but will catch every single one?
Second one.
Primarily.
Every other game. You're talking 6 touchdowns on the year.
Yeah.
How bad are the ones he drops?
In critical times.
Are they Ontario Wilson drops against Florida bad?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, one of those isn't worth the 6 touchdowns.
That about to say, because like when you see a drop punt, when it kills your momentum, it kills everything basically for that game. And I'm not gonna lie to you, that's just losing points off the board and give them another chance. I'm not gonna run the risk with that at all whatsoever.
Well, and you just proved a point by your answers. We're not asking for a lot. Just catch a football, which is something you're taught in Pee Wee. So,
what's the average punt? Probably 40-ish yards, right? So even if you're punting from your 20, so most punt catches are going to happen probably between the 20 and the 40, which you factor in how easy it is to score from there. Like if they're dropping 12 punts, they're probably going to result in 9 or 10 scores. And if they bring one to the house, that's only 6 scores. So, you're losing. I mean, the math is losing there, but, the point is we need to catch the damn ball on punts. I don't really care how it happens. That to me is one of those things, especially if it's coaching and guys are running backwards. Like it's just not that challenging. Just use a calculator, do the math, and tell him which yard line to put his heels on. Like I know I sound like a broken record right now, but
you don't need the hangover scene where like Zach Galifianakis has all these equations in front of him. It's like, no, just stand at this spot when he's here and this spot when he's here. That's it.
It's not challenging. So hopefully we do see more of that this year. The only thing is, and this is kind of going to be our last thing, but I do wonder if Norvell, how do I put this, doesn't kind of overcomplicate practice, because, I watch obviously all his interviews. I talk to people, some that are there. I talk to other coaches that I trust, mostly at the high school level. So it's a little different. I talk to former players that I know really well from various schools. And when I ask them this question, they all have very similar feedback. Mike Norvell's always talking about situations. Oh, we did this situation. We did this situation. I wonder if he's not just making it too segmented and kids are losing the forest through the trees. Like if you're always practicing third downs, that's not the same as doing a third down after a second down, after a first down. It's the same as going to the range and always hitting your 7-iron 10 times in a row. Yeah, you might have better ones than if you make yourself, which if you like to golf, you should do this in your practice, play holes in your mind. To be like, no, I'm going to hit a driver. I'm immediately going to switch to a wedge. And then I'm going to pretend, par 3, let me hit a 7-iron. Now I'm back to the driver. That is much more difficult than just saying, I'm going to work on my 100-yard chips. Because in a real golf game, if you hit a bad one, you don't just get to redo it, right? So I wonder if that is kind of a flaw in the Norvell attention to detail philosophy, the more I kind of hear him talk about situations and how much situational football they do.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me at all. And I'd just like to point out the irony of something you said before that. You said just catch the damn ball. Well, it's funny because we started today's show talking about receivers and guys that maybe can catch the damn ball. We ended with special teams, and the biggest problem with them being that we can't catch the damn ball. Seems like there's one glaring problem that if we fix that, a lot of things are going to go right.
Let's get some stick 'em and catch the damn ball then.
Yeah, let's get some stick 'em. Put it on their hands, Little Giant style. That way they're walking around with their hands stuck to their numbers. I don't care.
Or replacements, just literally like that, just stuck on your chest.
Right.
Or that. Hey guys, it's been an honor. It's been a privilege. Locked On Seminoles has been my home away from home, folks. It has been nothing short of amazing to get to yell at you or the air while you're listening from my office here, my office in Tampa. And before that, my desk in the corner of my tiny living room in Arlington, Virginia. This podcast has seen me through a lot. It's seen me just become almost an entirely different person, not because of the pod, but outside of the pod. And this has sort of been the one source of consistency in that. So from a random guy that you've probably never actually met, but for whatever reason you listen to on podcasts or on YouTube, make sure you subscribe on YouTube. Make sure you follow on the podcast because the content is not going to take any kind of drop off, and I'll still be listening every day. So you should too. But thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for letting me talk about the thing I am most passionate about on days where I probably held it together way better on camera than I was holding it together off camera. This was the source of joy and the one thing that kept me grounded and kept me going. It was getting to hop on with my best friends and talk to strangers about the team I love and the sport I care about. So with that, I'm Max. That was Dave. That was Drake. And this is Locked On Seminoles.
Take care, Max. We love you.
Love you, brother.
It's turbo time.
You finally have a damn sound for me.